Hello, welcome to the Intro to Tableau Building Visualizations. In this demonstration, we're going to build the three worksheets that make up this dashboard. Now that we've imported our data into Tableau, click on Sheet 1 at the bottom of the screen. This will take you to your worksheet view, where we'll build our first visualization. Going back to the visualization we're trying to build, we want to see total steps per day over time. To accomplish this, we'll utilize the date dimension and the steps measure. Start by dragging date to the columns shelf in the center of the screen at the top. You'll notice that the date defaults to the year. We'll talk a little more about that later. We also want steps, so let's grab those and move them to rows. You'll see that we have a start of a visualization that we're wanting, but we want to see by day instead of by year. Tableau automatically defaults to aggregating by year. You can change this by clicking the plus sign next to the year pill. It'll then break it down by quarter, then by month, and finally by day. You'll notice that this visualization has a scroll bar at the bottom. Let's fix that. Up here at the top where it says normal, let's change our view to fit the width. You can quickly see an overview of all the steps over the time period. Let's also show the average steps per month by referencing an average line. To do that, click on the Analytics tab at the top left, drag average line over, and we want it per pane, since the pane is the month. So that was perfect for what we were trying to do. So going back to what we're trying to build, that looks great. We have our month, we have our average. Moving on to our next visualization, let's build the average daily steps by day of week. This is a bar chart that shows average steps taken on a specific day over the time period. So every Sunday within the time period and so forth. Going back to Tableau, let's create a new worksheet at the bottom. To the right of sheet 1, you'll see three icons. Click on the far left one to create a new worksheet. We're going to utilize date and steps once again. Let's take the date dimension, drag it to columns shelf, and steps to rows. Now it's trying to draw a line, but we're going to want bars. We'll take care of that in just a second. There are a lot of different options with dates in Tableau, and we're going to utilize one of those special options. Instead of clicking the plus sign next to year, let's click on the caret on the far right. Scroll down to the first More section, and then select Weekday. You'll see Sunday through Saturday, and then the number of steps. Let's change this to a bar chart. So on the marks card, where it says automatic, click the down arrow and select bar. You'll now see that it is summing the total number of steps taken for each day. We want to get the overall average for each day, so let's fix that. Going back up to the rows shelf, you'll see that steps are summed. Let's change that to average by clicking on the caret on the far right. Coming down to measure sum and then selecting average. You'll see the average steps drastically adjust here on the left hand side, which is a good thing. Let's throw in that average one more time so we see the overall average. So our average line, we want to reference the entire table. We can also throw in color so that days with higher average steps are darker. To do that, let's take steps again and drag it on top of color on our marks card. You'll see that it automatically creates the light to dark color range, but you'll notice again it defaulted to sum of steps. Let's change that to average once again by clicking on the right side caret, choosing measure, and then selecting average. It's not really going to adjust. Whoops, that didn't even work. Try that one more time to average. It adjusted a little bit because the range changed from very large numbers to very small, well, semi-small numbers for steps. So going back to that visualization, you'll notice that the days of the week are abbreviated. Let's take care of that as well. So down here, let's right click and say Format. And over here on the left hand side, the default for dates, click the down arrow and select abbreviation. And then click out of that. And you'll notice that our abbreviations are now taking place. And users can quickly see what day of the week each of the abbreviations are. And that's it for this visualization. Let's move on to the next one. Let's build our final visualization by building an area chart of activity minutes average by month. In Tableau, click New Worksheet to the right of Sheet 2 at the bottom. This time we're going to work with date, minutes fairly active, minutes lightly active, and minutes very active. Let's start with the date. Drag that over to the column shelf. This is a special date situation, so we're going to click on the caret, and we're going to select the second month option where it shows May 2015. So just a quick difference between the two different date sections. The first one here is discrete dates. The second one down here is continuous dates. We'll talk about that more in an advanced class. For now, let's select the continuous month. Now let's take our measure values and add them to the rows shelf. Since we're adding multiple values and we want them all together in one visualization, Tableau creates a special field called measure values that you can utilize. Let's take that and drag it to the rows shelf. Now, back in the visualization, you notice that each of the measure types were different colors. To indicate that in Tableau, let's take measure names from the dimensions and drop it onto the color mark shelf. You'll then see measure names show up as filters. Let's edit those so we only see 3 of the measures from the list. Click on the caret and click Edit Filter. By default, all of the measures are selected, so let's click None, then select minutes fairly active, lightly active, and very active. When finished, click OK. So now we have 3 measure names available, 3 different colors on our chart. Let's change this to an area chart. On the marks card, click the down arrow next to Automatic and select Area. Now the area looks a little bit different from the visualization that we've already built. So the difference here is that the measure names are in a different order. So what we wanted to see is low, medium, high. So in this case, lightly, fairly, and very active. So all we need to do is take very active and put it on top. To do that, on the measure names down here at the bottom, click Minutes Very Active and move it to the top of the list. Then select it again to remove that selection, and now you'll see that the colors are in the right order. Now these colors might not be what defaulted on your screen, so to change that, hover over the measure names, and at the far top right, click the caret and select Edit Colors. I use the Tableau 10 color palette. For lightly active, I selected the orange. For fairly active, I selected the light blue. And for very active, I selected red. Once you've done that, click OK. Now, one interesting thing in this visualization is that there's a large dip in January. And if you go back to the steps by day, you'll notice that I was not wearing my Fitbit for a long period of time. And the reason for that was because the one I had stopped working. So while I was waiting on my new one, I was active, but it wasn't counting in the Fitbit world. So I really don't want that to skew my area chart. So one thing I could do is apply a filter so I only am looking at steps that are step days that have one or more steps. So underneath measures, let's go to steps and add that to the filter shelf. And I want to say all values. And for the steps, I want at least 1. Now click OK. You'll notice that the visualization has not changed at all. Well, why would that be? Well, if you look at the measure values down here at the bottom, you notice that they're still summing them. So even though I've eliminated those steps, that value is already 0 for those, so the sum would not increase or decrease at all. And I'm really looking for an average as opposed to the sum, so I'm going to go ahead and change those measure values to be averages. So let's do that for each of the 3. And once I do that, you'll notice that January is not as skewed as it used to be, which is what we're looking for. Now that we've completed that, let's go ahead and rename our sheets so they'll make our dashboard making much easier. So going back, activity minutes, let's call sheet 3 that by double clicking on it, renaming it activity minutes. Just push enter. Click on sheet 2, we're calling that average daily steps by day of week, double click. And finally, total steps for sheet 1. And push enter. So in our next video, we'll build the dashboard.